Hello, everyone. My name's Nick, and thank you for joining me today for my little TED Talk on disaster response 2.0 and what disaster response should look like in this day and age from a technology point of view. We've got decades of experience doing regenerative responses around the world. We have technology like AI and workflow automation and autonomous drones and 3D printing. We've got systems like sloping land agricultural techniques. We got regenerative agriculture, natural farming, permaculture design. We've got a whole field of research on appropriate technologies. Look, I want to thank everyone who was involved in the Caribbean response for Hurricane Beryl. There was tens of thousands of people who did amazing work getting relief where it was needed over the last 2 weeks. And now we're shifting into the reconstruction phase. And it is a great time to talk about how we could do things better. So I'm going to share some ideas with you today about how we could do a Caribbean Hurricane Beryl response in a united way, a one Caribbean response, a one UN response, leveraging UN 2.0 ideas and concepts as the UN digitally transforms itself through the initiative led by the Secretary General. Let's stimulate the digital transformation activities of the governments in the Caribbean. Let's put all the money, the tens of millions of dollars that are going to need to go into this reconstruction, and let's use it as best as possible. So I'm going to lay out my ideas for you today. My background, I started my career in politics and student politics. I've been on the computer since I was 8 years old. I'm nearly 40 now. I've always been fascinated with the best ideas, the best books, the best documentaries, the best way of doing things, the best way of thinking. So I picked up a lot along my career. I had my first job when I was 11 years old writing for internet.com. I wrote an internet security article on .htaccess protocol. So I've been working with chatbots for a while. I worked on Wall Street. I worked with NGOs and the UN. I have just had a blessed career with amazing education, amazing experiences, and I have a unique perspective. I've spent more than 15 years at the base of the socioeconomic pyramid, living in developing countries around the world, in particular on islands in tropical developing countries, working and living in places like the Philippines, Cambodia, Micronesia, Afghanistan, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Guyana, and today I'm in Trinidad. As my wife and I and my 2 daughters have decided to move to the Caribbean, and we're looking for our new home. So that's enough about me. Let's talk about Disaster 2.0 and what a permanent aid, a permaculture aid solution would be, where we never have to go back into these affected islands. Let's talk about the problems. Let's talk about the situation. Let's talk about how small the scale is and how there is a ripe opportunity for innovation here in disaster response, and that all of you listening, the main audience for this video is the governments of the affected area, the United Nations, the large NGOs and donors, from IDB to the World Bank to CDB to CARICOM. I'd like to get your attention about how we could think about this reconstruction effort better and do it in a regenerative way. Take a step beyond sustainable development, which really hasn't worked very well for the last 20 plus years that it's been a mainstream concept. So the goal of a response like this is to make sure that we never have to go back. It's a permanent response. Let's build the proper resiliency. Let's get the islands back to food self-sufficiency and abundance as quickly as possible. Let's get each island producing well more than enough of its own produce so that it can be selling supplies to all the yachts and cruisers and boats that travel the region. And let's increase the amount of organic food. Let's increase the number of small businesses. Let's provide risk capital and venture capital and loans and financing to tiny, micro, small, medium-sized businesses in the area and get things flowing again. So I'm proposing a one Caribbean response, a one UN response, a UN 2.0 powered response, funded by the private sector, venture capitalists, investment bankers, funded by impact investors, by the UN, by governments, by development banks, by private sector, civil society, all sharing in the cost of what I propose. But let's build a Caribbean disaster response team. Let's bring together 300 professionals and create the most badass team of people to lead this response. Let's start small. Let's start with 10 people, and then go to 20, and then to 40, and then to 80, and keep growing until we hit 300. Let's get a diverse group of talent. And then I'd call on all of you to help train them, help them grow. Let's find young leaders, change makers with skills, with talents, with network, with experience. Let's get them all together and give them world-class training from the best minds, from trainers from the US Coast Guard, from the UN, from development agencies, thinkers, academics, doers. Let's train them. Let's give them the best knowledge, the best resources, the best response to run one reconstruction effort in the region for the next 2 years, and to get them ready for the next hurricane or earthquake, which could be next week, could be 2 weeks, could be 2 months. We don't know. We have to have a sense of urgency about this. We have to improve our coordination. People's lives are at risk. We can do better. I'm not saying anyone is not doing great. There are Herculean efforts underway. And there have been amazing efforts for the last 2 weeks. So great. Let's have a conversation. Let's create a platform to do better. Let's talk about autonomous drones surveying the region. Let's talk about building back better, making sure that all construction is hurricane resilient. Let's talk about self-sufficiency and making sure that everyone has enough food. Let's talk about additional livelihood opportunities. And perhaps most importantly, let's talk about the fourth industrial revolution, the future fifth industrial revolution, and the technologies and the thinking involved and the skills that people need in those environments. Let's talk a lot about AI and the opportunities that AI present to people from the developing country and to island nations. The world needs millions of AI coaches and trainers. Just the Caribbean alone, if you look at the roughly 9 million people that speak English around approximately 30 countries, there's 200,000 organizations, governments, businesses, UN agencies. Each of them are going to need to build their capacity with AI. They need to know, should they use Gamma or Brilliant.ai or keep using PowerPoint for their presentations? Should they use Grammarly or Quillbot? How do they handle cybersecurity risks, data protection? All of these organizations in the Caribbean are going to need guides. So we need to really massively diffuse AI adoption and education on AI into all the schools. There's roughly 2 million students that speak English in the Caribbean. Let's make sure they all have an AI tutor. But let's start small, and let's just focus with the 25,000 roughly people that were severely affected. The people, let's start in Grenada, in Carriacou Island. Let's start in St. Vincent and the Grenadines on Union Island. And let's bring together 300 people. Again, young professionals of various sorts. But here's the model. I would say we take 100 people from the countries that were affected. 50 from the Grenadines, 50 from Grenada and 50 from St. Vincent. Then we take another 100 from the rest of the Caribbean islands, maybe 3 per country. I really get the best of the best so that the country can really invest in those 3 people with everything that it's got, so that every country in the region has a stake in this. and that we're setting up the infrastructure, the networks to scale this out across the region. And let's bring in 100 people from around the world, maybe 50 from the global south, 50 from the global north, maybe no more than 2 per country. So we get a diversity of people of different skills. And then let's train them. So OCHA, you guys give information management training. Let's take 30 of these people and highly capacitate them with technology skills and information management and the ability to fly drones and do GIS and use AI, etc. IFRC, IOM, UNHCR, take the shelter people, really, take some engineers, take some architects, and really give world-class training on tools and technology for building back better, so that the houses, the businesses, the schools, the community centers that go back are built as much as possible with local supplies from the Caribbean, so that we keep the money in the Caribbean. Let's invest in the Caribbean. Let's start with 300, but those 300 people are trainers of trainers. We look at them as future expert trainers, people that could lead full island responses. Put 1 of them or 2 of them or 5 of them on an island where there's been an earthquake, and they could train everyone, build everyone's capacity, so that the response could be as localized as possible, so that as much of the international aid and funding can go in directly to those islands. Let's do it under a permaculture aid framework, as pioneered by Steve Cran when he founded Green Warrior Permaculture. IOM funded one of his programs. Let's scale that. Let's take the best programs for poverty alleviation, for disaster reduction, for regenerative agriculture around the world, for healthcare. Let's bring them all to the 25,000 people that were affected. The cost is like this to try and innovate in this response. If we had 250,000 people, if we had 2.5 million people affected, the complexities, the scale, the money involved, so much higher. So let's start deploying some risk capital, and let's share the risk. Let's get lots of organizations to put in $1 million. Let's get lots of organizations to put in $10 million. But of course, let's start small and start with 50 grand so that we can get everything legal and proper, so that we can register in the Cayman Islands as a foundation company or something similar. So let's get the lawyer on board. Let's set up a board of directors. Let's set up a board of advisors of world-class professionals from every different sector to advise me in leading this project and advise everyone else. Let's build a roster of hundreds of trainers who are offering their courses and their expertise and their advice to these 300 change makers that we're going to mentor over the next year or two. And let's think about scale. This is a great time to start small. So I'm giving you an urgent call to action to join me and explore these ideas. So this video, it's mainly directed at the 2 governments and CARICOM. So the governments of Grenada and the governments of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as well as CARICOM and all CARICOM nations. Please invite me to have these conversations and so many more with you. Let's sit down, let's talk. I invite the UN, I invite every agency in the UN, I invite every NGO that's responding, every faith-based group, every community group to start joining in this conversation about how we could do better. Let's start with just 50 grand financially, but let's get a lot more money ready, potentially to go really fast and really big with this. But for this week and next week, let's focus on raising 50 grand. It could be from one person, could be from lots of people, so we can do everything legal, proper, with government, with coordination, so that we can pay for flights, so that we can pay for salaries, so that we can pay for governance, we can pay for lawyers, we can pay for marketing, websites, subscriptions to AI tools. We can pay some developers to start MVPing solutions. As we get ready for whatever this could evolve and scale into. So I'm calling today for $50,000. whether from one or from many, in a GoFundMe. I'm calling for people to express their interest in supporting this project. There will be a form attached to it that you can fill out. I'm going to set up a GoFundMe to raise that $50,000 so that I can start spending that wisely to do everything that I've just discussed and do it properly. And let's do all of this open source. Let's do all of it fully transparent. Let's make sure that every donation, every cent that's spent is logged in a system like Expensify or Zoho, or that it is logged in on the blockchain in some other system. Let's make it all transparent. Let's make all the project management open source so that anyone in the world can follow along with how these projects are going. Let's use Asana or Trello or Monday.com or ClickUp or Jira, and let's implement a world-class project management system that not just the 300 can use, not just the hundreds of workers that work under them can use, the thousands of people that they train could use, that all the NGOs could use to transparently see what's going on every single day. From a monitoring and evaluation point of view, this stuff is easy. You set up GoPro cameras, you stream construction sites, you log everything on apps and on smartphones, and there should be zero reason for credibility. This project can do daily briefings and AMAs, I guess press conferences. AMAs are Ask Me Anythings, big thing on Reddit and other communities for transparency and communication. We build a huge Discord community of people who want to be involved in this, and we start thinking about how to scale and spread. We can learn from mycelium and mycelial networks and how they grow, develop, spore, and spawn. We can think of alternative governance methods, but let's take this opportunity, this small response, to come together. One Caribbean, one UN, one humanitarian response, one humanity, to focus on this really small part of the world, these very few islands. Let's start there, let's innovate, and let's work together to set all the things up that we need to scale and go big. Thank you everyone for listening to my TED Talk. I've never done a TED Talk. I'd love to. But let's start coming together. There's tens of millions of dollars that are needed for this response. Let's use those money wisely. Let's spend it all in the Caribbean. Let's spend it all locally. And let's build the capacity. Let's make sure we never have to go back to these islands again. And let's make sure that we can build the resilience of all the rest of the Caribbean as part of scaling what we start here today. Thank you, everyone.